Meghan Markle left speechless after Tom Bower revealed hidden divorce clause, and suddenly the fairy tale cracks don't just show, they echo. Because what if everything you thought you knew about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle wasn't just incomplete, but carefully staged? What if the romance, the rebellion, the billion-dollar dream was never a love story at all, but a contract slowly unraveling in plain sight? And what if the silence, the gaps, the missing faces, are actually screaming louder than any headline ever could? It starts innocently enough, or at least, that's how it's meant to look. A marriage born in 2016, glowing under cameras, crowned with a wedding that felt less like a ceremony and more like a global spectacle. But behind the velvet curtains, behind the polished smiles, something far colder was already forming, according to a statement from Tom Bower that ignited a storm of whispers and speculation. There was always something embedded deep within this union, something legal, something calculated, something designed not for love, but for exit. And suddenly, everything begins to shift. Because when you revisit the narrative now, when you rewind the timeline with this revelation in mind, the patterns don't just appear, they align. Meghan Markle genuinely expected Harry to be a billionaire when she met him. That expectation alone reframes the entire beginning, not as a fairy tale, but as a projection, a vision, a calculation. And when reality didn't match the expectation, when Prince Harry and Meghan Markle stepped away from royal duties and entered the chaotic world of American business ventures, the cracks didn't just widen, they multiplied. What followed wasn't stability. It was noise, constant criticism, endless backlash. A relationship described not by affection, but by tension. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because one insider account suggested something almost chilling. That the only thing holding them together was the storm itself. Not love, not unity, but conflict. As if the chaos became the glue. And then Tom Bower dropped something even heavier. A clause, hidden, buried inside financial arrangements. The kind of clause that doesn't exist in romantic stories. It exists in corporate ones. Because that's what this begins to look like. Not a marriage, but a merger. One with exit strategies, asset protections, intellectual property divisions, and carefully defined boundaries for when things inevitably fall apart. And once you see it that way, you can't unsee it. Because suddenly, every move starts to feel strategic. Every decision, rehearsed. Meghan Markle aligning with Sunshine Sachs again. Prince Harry drifting deeper into legal battles in London, separate focuses, separate energies, separate lives, not loudly announced, but quietly unfolding. And then comes the moment that changes everything. The 8th wedding anniversary. It should have been simple, a celebration, a reflection. Instead, it became something else entirely, a digital event that raised more questions than it answered. Meghan Markle releases a carousel of 24 personal photographs, intimate, carefully curated. A visual story meant to reinforce a narrative. But here's where it gets strange, because what's missing matters more than what's shown. Prince Harry appears, but barely, reduced almost to a supporting role in his own marriage story. Observers notice it immediately, the imbalance, the positioning, the subtle shift in power. And then, the deeper absence hits like a shockwave. No King Charles III, no Queen Elizabeth II, no Prince William, no Catherine, Princess of Wales, gone. Every single one of them. It's not just omission, it's erasure. And then comes the detail that stops everything cold. Doria Ragland is missing too. Not a single image, not a single trace. The woman who sat alone at the wedding, the woman presented to the world as the emotional anchor, the quiet strength, the moral center, completely removed. And that's not a coincidence. Because when you strip away every family connection, every institutional tie, every emotional anchor, what remains? Just one figure. Centered, elevated, isolated, Meghan Markle. And suddenly, the anniversary post doesn't look like a celebration anymore. It looks like a reconstruction, a rewriting of history, a version of events where the past has been edited to fit a new narrative, one where the supporting cast has been quietly erased, leaving only the protagonist standing. But why? Why remove everyone? Why now? Because if Tom Bower's claims are even partially true, then this isn't just about image control, it's about positioning. Legal positioning, financial positioning, emotional positioning, preparing the stage for something that hasn't been publicly announced yet but is already unfolding behind closed doors. And the silence around it, That's the loudest part, because Hollywood, once eager to orbit this couple, has gone quiet. No endorsements, no celebrations, no public support. The same elite circles that once rushed toward them now step back. Even Sir Elton John, one of the few names still loosely connected, feels less like a shared bond and more like a lingering thread from Prince Harry's past. A connection rooted in Diana, Princess of Wales, not in the marriage itself. And that distinction matters, because it reinforces the idea that this union was never as unified as it appeared. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, something else is happening. Something subtle but significant. Prince Harry spending more time away. Legal battles pulling him back to London. Familiar territory, familiar faces, a past that, despite everything, still calls to him. While Meghan Markle pushes forward. Branding, launching, rebuilding, repositioning. Two directions, one marriage, and somewhere in between, a clause. A hidden structure designed not for if, but for when. Because when a relationship starts to look like a business, when emotions begin to mirror negotiations, when memories are edited and alliances shift, the question is no longer whether something is wrong. And this is where the illusion finally begins to collapse under its own weight, not with a loud public explosion, but with something far more unsettling, a slow, methodical exposure of everything that was quietly engineered behind the scenes. Because as the financial reality of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's empire starts to come into focus, the numbers don't just disappoint. They contradict the narrative that was sold to the world, the promise of massive deals, the illusion of endless millions, the confident headlines that once declared unstoppable success. Those figures were never as solid as they seemed. They were conditional, fragile, dependent on delivery, performance, and constant output. And when projects stalled, when productions like Pearl disappeared before even materializing, the consequences weren't just professional setbacks, they were structural fractures spreading through the entire foundation. Because what happens when a brand built on momentum suddenly loses speed? What happens when expectations outpace reality? The answer begins to show itself in the way Prince Harry and Meghan Markle start moving, not together, but apart. Prince Harry becomes increasingly entangled in legal battles, drawn back toward London, toward a past that still holds fragments of identity and familiarity, while Meghan Markle accelerates in a completely different direction, pushing deeper into lifestyle ventures, trademark filings, and personal branding efforts that feel less like shared ambition and more like individual survival strategies. And that's when the shift becomes impossible to ignore. This is no longer a partnership operating on mutual goals. It's a dual operation, two parallel paths running under the same name, but no longer aligned in purpose. And then the deeper layer reveals itself. Because according to Tom Bower, the legal architecture behind this marriage was never simple. It wasn't just a standard agreement, it evolved, it adapted, it expanded into something far more complex, incorporating clauses that addressed not just existing assets, but future earnings, intellectual property, and control over every commercial element tied to the Sussex identity. And when you look at that closely, when you understand what that really means, it stops sounding like preparation for success and starts sounding like preparation for separation. A system designed to ensure that when the moment comes, everything is already divided, already protected, already calculated, and suddenly every move Meghan Markle makes begins to look different. The independent trademarks, the separation of business entities, the careful distancing from joint ventures. It's not random, it's not reactive, it's strategic. Because when someone begins building financial firewalls, they're not thinking about unity, they're thinking about insulation. And that creates a tension that can't be hidden forever, no matter how polished the public appearances may seem. Because behind closed doors, reports suggest something far less composed, a growing distance that isn't just emotional, but physical. Separate spaces, separate routines, separate lives unfolding quietly within the same framework, creating an environment where togetherness becomes performative rather than real.